Okay, let's just forge ahead, see where this takes us. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to session number 169 of Kevin Reads A Course in Miracles. We are in chapter 21, entitled Reason and Perception. And this will be section 5, Roman numeral 5, all right, entitled The Function of Reason. Okay. Roman numeral 5. And I'm going to repeat my Roman soldier joke. The Roman soldier walks into a bar and he goes, "I'll have 5 beers." Very funny. So, the function of reason. Right, in a chapter that's dedicated to reason and perception. Reason, once again, is that right-minded thinking. The wrong-minded thinking, so to speak, is the decision maker aligned with the idea of separation, which is the ego thought system. Okay? Reason, the right mind, is our tool for correcting our perception, our miscreations. Okay? So, paragraph 1. Perception selects and makes the world you see. It literally picks it out of the mind as the mind directs. The laws of size and shape and brightness would hold, perhaps, if other things were equal. They are not equal. For what you look for, you are far more likely to discover than what you would prefer to overlook. The still small voice for God is not drowned out by all the ego's raucous screams and senseless ravings to those who want to hear it. Perception is a choice, not a fact. But on this choice depends far more than you may realize as yet. For on the voice you choose to hear, and on the sights you choose to see, depend entirely your whole belief in what you are. Perception is a witness but to this, and never to reality. Yet it can show you the conditions in which awareness of reality is possible, of those where it could never be. All right? So, perception, all right, says it selects what you want to see. Right? Projection makes perception. And the first thing we did was project the terrible guilt that we felt over destroying heaven and oneness. Right? We projected that, right, first onto an angry God, and then to make up a universe. So perception selected all these things that we see. And it literally picks it out as the mind directs. Right, so the mind is in charge of it all. Right? We have as we live, we have that mistaken notion that things are being done to us, that the world is the cause and we are the effect. But Jesus constantly reminds us that the mind is the cause and the world is the effect. And so perception selects and makes the world you see. Right? It literally picks it out as the mind directs. It's the laws of shape and size and brightness would hold, perhaps, if other things were equal. But simply what he's saying there is that they're not equal. The mind is in control. Right? The mind tells you what you're going to see. right? But the still small voice of God is not drowned out, right? So that still small voice of God, the Holy Spirit, we call it, Jesus is the embodiment of that, all right? The memory of who you are, right, that keeps calling to you, that small voice is not drowned out. All right? It's not drowned out by all the raucous shrieking, all right? All the ego's screams and raucous screaming, and senseless ravings. Right? So it's not drowned out to those who want to hear it. Right? There's a sentence elsewhere in the Course that says the Holy Spirit's voice is as loud as my desire to hear it. Basically the same thing. He says perception is a choice, not a fact. So perception came into being, so to speak, by our choosing to believe we were separate from God. The next thing you know, there's perception. Right? Our senses report things to us. Right? And we interpret what we think we're seeing here. So perception is a choice and not a fact. But on this choice depends far more than you may realize yet. For on the voice you choose to hear and on the sights you choose to see depends entirely your whole belief in what you are. And perception is a witness but to this and never to reality. Right? So perception, everything I see, everything my senses report to me, right? They're telling me what I think I am. Right? They're telling me what I think I am. So he's telling you that the choice on whose voice you choose to interpret things with, right? The teacher that we choose to help us with our perception is very important, right? It shows us your whole belief in what you are. Perception is a witness. It's a witness, but to what you believe you are, right? And never to reality. All right? So there is no perception in reality. There's only knowledge. Right? But the perception, there's always interpretations. That's why we constantly practice asking, Holy Spirit, the still small voice, help me, to see correctly. Please correct my perceptions. I want the correct perception. I want truth. I want peace of mind. All those things. So, and if I go to the Holy Spirit, right, and ask with a sincere desire to have my perceptions changed, the world will reflect to me what I think I am. Okay? Do I think I am on my own, uncertain, lonely, and in constant fear? Or do I think I am one with my Father? So there is no threat. All right? There is nothing I need. I don't need to compete. I don't need to use anybody for anything. All right? And we grow in that corrected perception, right, with practice. Help me to see correctly. Okay? There should be a prize for the 1,000,000th time I say that. All right? Perception is a witness but to this and never to reality. All right? So perception is not a witness to reality. All right? Because in reality, you know what you are. You know that you're connected to God. All right? All right, so perception is a witness, yet it can show you the conditions in which awareness of reality is possible, or those where it could never be. Right? So our perceptions can show us where to find the reality of who we are. Right? Or our perceptions can also show us where you will never find it. Right? That's a positive use of perception. Right? It can show you the conditions in which awareness of reality is possible. Okay? Or those conditions where it could never be. And I like this sentence. It sounds like my father talking to me. It's what my father would sound like. Well, in paragraph 2, he says, reality needs no cooperation from you to be itself. Excuse me. So reality needs no cooperation from you to be itself. Reality just is. I don't need to understand it. I don't need to be okay with it. I don't need to agree with it. It just says it is. It just is. And that's who we are. That's who you are. In reality, we just are. All right? So reality doesn't need cooperation from us to be itself. But your awareness of it needs your help, because it is your choice. Listen to what the ego says and see what it directs you to see. And it is sure that you will see yourself as tiny, vulnerable, and afraid. You will experience depression, a sense of worthlessness, and feelings of impermanence and unreality. You will believe that you are helpless prey to forces far beyond your own control and far more powerful than you. And you will think the world you made directs your destiny. For this will be your faith. But never believe because it is your faith, it makes reality. All right? Just because you believe that doesn't make reality. Okay? So reality needs no cooperation, but your awareness of it needs your help. All right, so in order to become aware of what reality is, all right, we have to help ourselves, because it is a choice. It is a choice. You get to the point in everyday situations where you make the choice. And sometimes, the choice is it has a pattern. And the best thing you can do, sometimes the most you can do, is say, in this situation, whatever's going on, at least I know I don't feel right. I don't feel good. I don't like the way I feel. Okay? And that's an indicator that it could be time to come inside to that still small voice, and with a sincere dedication to peace and truth, you ask, help me to see this correctly. So that choice, help me to see that correctly, is leading us to the knowledge, the awareness of reality. Okay? Once again, it's a process. And Jesus says that for most of us, it's a good thing it's a process, because he says it would, of course he doesn't use slang terms like me, but it would blow your mind. He said it would be too much all at once. All right, so it is the process, but it depends on our choice. What is it that you want to see? What is it that you want to experience? So in every situation, if I remind myself, I truly want to see through the eyes of peace. I truly want my angry perception, my fearful perception, I truly want it to be corrected. All right. He says, you're working your way to the awareness of reality. Right? You're working your way to the awareness of your connection to your source. You never left the mind of God. So he says your choice depends on when you become aware of that. All right? He says your awareness of reality needs your help because it is your choice. Listen to what the ego says. All right? See what it directs that you see. So the ego thought system, this idea of separation, I'm an individual, I'm separated from God. He says, look at what the ego is going to teach you. It's going to show you this. He says, it's going to show you that you are small in this world. All right? You're tiny, you're vulnerable, and you're afraid. Okay? And he says, and the ego thought system is going to make sure that you experience depression, okay, and a sense of worthlessness, and feelings of impermanence and unreality. You know, in other words, you don't know what's going on, but you don't feel good. You feel very sad. You feel horrible. I mean, I was speaking with my niece yesterday about depression, and everybody has a different way of experiencing it, physically and mentally, you know. And but the ego makes sure that you're going to experience it, one way or the other. You know, I used to tell my friend Patty, I used to call it the python of depression, because it felt like this giant python wrapping around me and squeezing me. Squeezing the life out of you, right? And then you try to walk, and it's so heavy, and it's, oh my God. You know, and that's like a metaphor for the state of depression, right? But the ego is going to tell you that's the way it goes. You know, it's going to make yourself tiny, vulnerable, and afraid. You'll experience depression, a sense of worthlessness, and feelings of impermanence and unreality. You will believe that you are helpless. You are a helpless prey, all right, to the forces far beyond your own control and far more powerful than you. And you will think the world you made directs your destiny. All right. He says, you think the world you made directs your destiny. You will think that the world is the cause and you are the effect. Right? Because that's what the ego wants you to think. The ego wants you to stay out of your mind so you don't go to your right mind. Right? And he says, so this is what you'll experience because this is where you put your faith. All right? This is where you invested in the thought of separation. So I put my faith in that belief that I'm separated from God. So that's where your faith is. But he says, don't believe it that your faith makes reality. It's just because you invested in that thought, it doesn't make it real. It doesn't make reality. It doesn't change reality. Your reality is always that you are the Christ. You are the offspring of God. You are an idea in the mind of God. That's the reality. You have no needs. You have nothing to fear. All you do is extend everything everywhere. Right? But when I invest in the thought of separation, I see everything, all these other things. This world that has, it's bigger than me. It's bigger than both of us, Alice. You know? And, you know, we think that we're victims of forces outside our control. All right? And he says, just take a look at that. And we can change that. Together we can change that. We can work our way back to total awareness of reality. You'll be a lot happier. I guarantee it. All right? He says, so this is what your faith will be in this depressed world. He says, but never believe that because it is your faith that it makes reality. He says, remember, that just because you believe this is what's happening and this is what's true, it doesn't change reality. It doesn't change the fact that you are a thought in the mind of God. You are a thought of pure innocence. Let that sink in for a second. So no matter what we believe down here, it doesn't change who you really are. All right? This is just a disguise. It's this great passion play that we're involved in. Right? But underneath the costume is who you really are. All right? Paragraph 3. Okay. There is another vision and another voice in which your freedom lies, awaiting your choice. And if you place your faith in them, you will perceive another self in you. This other self sees miracles as natural. They are as simple and as natural to it as breathing to the body. They are the obvious response to calls for help, the only one it makes. Miracles seem unnatural to the ego because it does not understand how separate minds can influence one another. Nor could they do so. But minds cannot be separate. This other self is perfectly aware of this, and thus it recognizes that miracles do not affect another's mind, only its own. They always change your mind. There is no other. All right? A powerful paragraph. There is only one mind. Right? Now, once again, you let this flow over you. You let all the metaphysics of the Course flow over you. And when you come into this world where we believe we live, you focus on changing your perceptions, helping me see through the eyes of peace. Right? And then we get to the awareness that, oh wait, it's not separate minds influencing one another. There's only one mind. Right? And this mind contains all these scenarios. Right? It's unbelievable. It's, all the realms of possibilities, all the histories and the futures, and oh my goodness. It's all held in the one mind. All right? And he says there's a self inside of you that's aware of this. Okay? And it's depending on your choice. All right? He says there is another vision and another voice in which your freedom lies, awaiting your choice. Your freedom from this ego thought system. Freedom from the thought of chaos, depression. I'm guilty of something. These free-floating thoughts of worthlessness and impermanence and what am I doing this for? I work all my life just to do this. And that's, I don't mean to chuckle, sorry folks. But that's where most of us get to, right? And Jesus is saying there's a voice in you. There's another voice, right, in which your freedom lies. And it's just waiting for your choice. And the choice is that practice of help me to see correctly. All right? That's coupled with the willingness, right? A sincere desire to see correctly. All right? I don't want this anymore. All right? I don't want the hatred. I don't want the fear. Right? I want to see correctly, which means I want the truth, I want peace. Right? And if you place your faith in that voice, right, he's calling it them, right, which is you connected to Jesus, Holy Spirit, the memory of who you are, right? You will perceive another self in you, right? With that practice, you will see that there's another self in you, and this other self sees miracles as natural. This other self sees the corrected perception as natural. Right? So he sees miracles as natural. They're as simple and as natural to it as breathing is to the body. So seeing things correctly is as natural as breathing to that other you that's in you. All right. They are the obvious response to calls. Miracles are the obvious response to calls for help. All right. And the only one it makes. It's the only response is the miracle, the change of perception. I'm no longer judging what I see out there, right? I'm no longer judging the homeless person that's approaching my car. I'm no longer judging the homeless person on the street, right? I'm no longer judging the man who's manic in the subway, right? So many things. I'm no longer judging that. The miracle is the obvious response to everything, right? Correct perception is the obvious response to everything. And if my perception is corrected, right, the love will be directed where it needs to go, right? Because the mind is one, all the minds are connected, right? The love will extend to the manic man in the subway. The love will extend to the homeless man on the street. Right? The love will extend to the lady who's collecting cans in the park. Right? And I laugh because these things bring up memories. I mean, I was sitting in Washington Square Park in the summertime, and this woman, a young woman, is walking around with a sign. And I says, I don't need no dollars. She goes, I don't need no dollars. Dollars don't get you anything. I need 5. And that's what her sign said. So, but if I'm in my right mind, there's no judgment there, right? There's only corrected perception, and the love goes out. And it takes the form that it needs to take. All right? We don't need to do anything. We don't need to plan anything. I just need to be in the state of right-mindedness, that state of reason that he's talking about in this chapter. And it becomes a welcomed state. You want to be there more and more. Right? And it's just practice, a desire to be there. I mean, that's first and foremost, really. Jesus even says I want the peace of God. That's one of the exercises. He says to say these words means nothing. He goes, to mean these things, these words, is everything. All right? So there'll be a sincere desire to have my perception corrected. I want to see through the eyes of peace. All right? I want to be able to smile. All right? Even if I have to duck and run away, I want to be smiling. Okay? All right. Where was I before I so rudely interrupted myself? So miracles seem unnatural to the ego because it doesn't understand how separate minds can influence each other. Right? Nor could they. He says, no, separate minds really can't influence each other. All right? But the whole thing is, but minds cannot be separate. He says this other self that's in you is perfectly aware of this. And thus it recognizes that miracles do not affect another's mind, only its own. The miracle affects my mind, which is everyone else's. All right? They always change your mind. Okay? There is no other. Okay? Paragraph 4. You do not realize the whole extent to which the idea of separation has interfered with reason. Reason lies in the other self you have cut off from your awareness. And nothing you have allowed to stay in your awareness is capable of reason. How can this segment of the mind devoid of reason understand what reason is, or grasp the information it would give? All sorts of questions may arise in it, but if the basic question stems from reason, it will not ask. Like all that stems from reason, the basic question is obvious, simple, and remains unasked. But think not that reason could not answer it. All right? And two sections down the road, Jesus is going to be talking about what he calls the last unanswered question. All right? And I'll give you a little preview. Spoiler alert, I'm going to ruin the ending for you. That question is, do you want to see what you have denied because it is the truth? Right? Do I want to see what I have denied, which is my true self, my connection with God? It says, do you want to see that? You want to see your true self? Because that's the truth. Okay? So that's the big question. What am I, as the guru would say? So reason lies in the other self that you have cut off from your awareness. Right? So that's where our reason is, in that self that's been cut off from our awareness. And nothing you have allowed to stay in your awareness is capable of reason. Right? It's not capable of true perception. Right? None of these things in the world. No matter how glorious and useful and all that they may be within the world of form, the world of time and space, all right? He says they're all cut off from your awareness. Right? So reason lies in that other self. Right? So nothing you've allowed to stay in your awareness is capable of reason. How can the segment of the mind devoid of reason understand what reason is, or grasp the information it would give? All right, so how could this ego-based mind, how could it grasp what reason is telling you? Reason is telling you who you truly are. Right? But this other piece of the mind that perceives this world can't grasp the information. Because the world is going to turn around and say, no, you're crazy, man. You are crazy. All right? You are connected to God? I mean, really? And the world will tell you you're not. All right? So he says, how can the segment of the mind devoid of reason understand what reason is. Right? All sorts of questions may arise in it. Right? So all sorts of questions arise in the ego thought system. How did I get here? People would always ask Ken in the workshops. Eventually somebody would ask the same question. And he would laugh. He says, it's always amazed how people would ask the same question in different ways. Right? And Ken would always say, you're not going to like the answer. How did I get here? And Ken would say, you're not going to like the answer. The answer is you're not here. And Jesus would say, why do you even bother with that question? All right? Why do you waste time with that question? All right? When you're trying to get back to your true self. All right? And he would say that the question is just a statement in disguise. How did I get here? It's actually a statement that says, I'm here. All right? So he says, why bother? He says, because every moment you're making the choice. You're making the choice to be separated from God, to believe that you're separated from God. Right? And that's how powerful the mind is. So there's emphasis here in this section on choices. Right? We choose to hear that other voice that's in us that will bring us to the awareness of reality. Okay? So, let's look at paragraph 5. God's plan for your salvation could not have been established without your will and your consent. It must have been accepted by the Son of God, for what God wills for him, he must receive. For God wills not apart from him, nor does the will of God wait upon time to be accomplished. Therefore, what joined the will of God must be in you now, being eternal. You must have set aside a place in which the Holy Spirit can abide, and where he is. He must have been there since the need for him arose, and was fulfilled in the same instant. Such would your reason tell you, if you listened. Yet such is clearly not the ego's reasoning. Your reason's alien nature to the ego is proof you will not find the answer there. Yet if it must be so, it must exist. And if it exists for you, and has your freedom as its purpose, as the purpose given it, you must be free to find it. Okay? So, he says there, the sentence, the key, I think, is sentence 4 in paragraph 5. Therefore, what joined the will of God must be in you now, being eternal. Right? You must have set aside a place in which the Holy Spirit can abide. Right? And he must have been there since the need for him arose. Right? So the tiny mad idea rises in the mind, oh, I could be separate from God. There's the need for the healing. There's the need for that thought that says, no, you're not separate from God. You can't do that. Right? That's the Holy Spirit in a condensed can. You can't separate from God. And he says that arose, there was a place in your mind for that the moment the need arose. Okay, so the tiny mad idea pops up and bang, there's the solution. I can be separate. No, you can't. All right. But the mind is so powerful that we're living in the tail of the comet, so to speak. We're living in the aftermath of the thought that I could be separate. Okay? like we say, just keep the metaphysics in the back of your mind and work on what's in front of us, all right? Which is the forgiveness of others, the forgiveness of the world. Right? In other words, we stop projecting guilt onto others, right? And we have a desire to see correctly. Eventually, you'll get to that aha moment, right? When all the metaphysics are clear to you. So, it says, therefore, what joined the will of God must be in you now. All right? So the Holy Spirit, the memory of who you are, must be in you now, because it's eternal. Right? He must have been there since the need for him arose. So the need arose and was fulfilled in the same instant. Such would your reason tell you if you listened. So such would your right mind tell you if you were listening to it, if you weren't engaged in mindlessness. Right? And nobody's pointing fingers at us for being mindless. Right? That's the condition into which we're born, so to speak. The ego wants us out of our mind, right, and into a body. Right? But what we do is we stop and say, wait, I don't like the way this feels anymore. I don't like what's going on. You know, any way that you realize that you don't want this anymore, help me to see correctly. And there's your practice and your process for the rest of your life. And each time you do that, it brings you closer to the awareness of reality, because the awareness of reality is already in you. It's already there. It's that still small voice he's talking about. All right? So, let's look at paragraph 6. God's plan is simple, never circular, and never self-defeating. He has no thoughts except the self-extending. And in this, your will must be included. Thus, there must be a part of you that knows his will and shares it. It is not meaningful to ask if what must be is so. But it is meaningful to ask why you are unaware of what it is. For this must have an answer if the plan of God for your salvation is complete. And it must be complete, because its source knows not of incompletion. All right. So God's plan is simple. He has no thoughts except the self-extending. That's what God's thoughts are. They are the self-extending thoughts. This thought of perfect innocence. It extends. The thought of perfect love extends. And in this, your will must be included. So in this, you are included in that extension. And that is what you are, and that is what you do. And that's it. Right? It's like a paid vacation. That's what you do. You do the same as God. You extend the self, the innocence. So he says it's not meaningful to ask if what must be is so. Oh, is this true? Is it not meaningful to even ask that? Right. But he says, but it is meaningful to ask, why you're not aware of it. All right? Why am I not aware of this? He says, that's a good question. Right? For this must have an answer. If the plan of God for your salvation is complete. Right? And it must be complete because the source knows not of incompletion. All right? So the thing is, we do that. Why am I unaware of who I am? Right? It's because I'm listening to the wrong guide. I'm listening to the wrong teacher. I'm invested in the thought of separation. So, let's undo it. Help me to see correctly. All right? So where would the answer be but in the source? All right? In the right mind. That's where the answer is. All right? And where are you but there? Where this same answer is. Your identity, as much a true effect of the same source as is the answer, must therefore be together and the same. Oh yes, you know this, and more than this alone. Yet any part of knowledge threatens dissociation as much as all of it. And all of it will come with any part. Here is the part you can accept. What reason points to, you can see, because the witnesses on its behalf are clear. Only the totally insane can disregard them, and you have gone past this. Reason is a means that serves the Holy Spirit's purpose in its own right. It is not reinterpreted and redirected from the goal of sin, as are the others, for reason is beyond the ego's range of means. Right? Reason is way beyond what the ego can do. Right? Although the ego is a powerful, insane thought system. But reason is far beyond what it can do. Right? And he tells us here, any part of knowledge threatens dissociation. Right? Any part. That's why the ego gets all shook up. When I'm practicing coming back and asking to see correctly. He said in the chapter or the section ahead of this, at that point the ego doesn't even pretend to be a friend. The ego knows that something is threatening it. Because the ego is that dissociation, right? And the journey toward knowledge, so any part of knowledge threatens the ego, right? He says, so what reason points you to, you can see, right? Because the witnesses on its behalf are clear, right? Because you will know, right? You will see changes, right? It's, hard to put into words, but you'll know because you asked to have your perceptions changed. And you'll see as you go along. Oh yeah, and you'll say, oh yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that. Or you wonder where did that anger go? Right? This guy that every time I saw him, I wanted to say something snotty to him or hope something happens to him. Now it's, I hope he encounters the will of God. I'm no longer angry. I'm no longer resentful or whatever it was. Something changed. He says, you'll notice that. You will notice that along the way. And you'll want more. Right? Because the reason, seeing things in the right mind, it's far beyond what the ego can accomplish. So paragraph 8. Faith and perception and belief can be misplaced into the ego. and serve the great deceiver's needs as well as truth. But reason has no place at all in madness, nor can it be adjusted to fit its end. Faith and belief are strong in madness, guiding perception toward what the mind has valued. But reason enters not at all in this, for the perception would fall away at once if reason were applied. There is no reason in insanity, for it depends entirely on reason's absence. The ego never uses it, because it does not realize that it exists. The partially insane have access to it, and only they have need of it. Knowledge does not depend on it, and madness keeps it out. Okay. So he says, in this crazy world, there is no reason. We have to go back into the mind to hear that still small voice. That's where reason is. All right, it's there. Right? So reason doesn't enter all into this crazy world. Right? Because he says, because perception would fall away when reason is applied to it. Right? The ego never uses it because it does not realize that it exists. The partially insane have access to it, and only they have need of it. So the partially insane have need of reason. Right? And he says knowledge doesn't depend on it. Right? Knowledge doesn't depend on anything. Right? And madness keeps it out. Madness doesn't want anything to do with reason. Madness doesn't want to see correctly. Right? Knowledge doesn't need to see correctly. It already is aware of everything. Okay. Paragraph 9. The part of the mind where reason lies was dedicated by your will in union with your fathers to the undoing of insanity. Here was the Holy Spirit's purpose accepted and accomplished, both at once. Reason is alien to insanity, and those who use it have gained a means which cannot be applied to sin. Knowledge is far beyond attainment of any kind, but reason can serve to open doors you closed against it. All right. The part of the mind where reason lies was dedicated by your will in union with the fathers. It was dedicated to the undoing of insanity. All right, so that the right mind was dedicated to seeing correctly, correcting perception, to undoing insanity. Okay. Here was the Holy Spirit's purpose accepted and accomplished, both at once. All right. And then he just reiterates that reason is alien to insanity. All right. And those who use it have gained a means which cannot be applied to sin. Knowledge is far beyond attainment of any kind, but reason can serve to open doors that you've closed against it. So reason in this experience, this time-space continuum, as they would say in Star Trek, right, the world of form. Reason is the tool that will get us back to knowledge. Reason is the tool that will get us back to the awareness of who we are. All right, and reason, which is using the right mind to correct perception. I want to see correctly. Right. And he says, you've come very close to this. Right? He says, reason can open doors that you've closed against knowledge. And it's because you've come very close to this. All right? Faith and belief have shifted. And you have asked the question the ego will never ask. Does your reason tell you now the question must have come from something that you do not know, but must belong to you? Faith and belief, upheld by reason, cannot fail to lead to changed perception. And in this change is room made way for vision. Vision extends beyond itself and does the purpose that it serves, and all the means for its accomplishment. All right? Reason extends beyond itself. Vision, my eyes are getting tired. Vision extends beyond itself, and as does the purpose that it serves, and all the means for its accomplishment. Right? Faith and belief, upheld by reason, cannot fail to lead to changed perception. All right? So I put my faith in the Holy Spirit, and I ask, help me to see correctly. All right? He says that's faith upheld by reason. He says it can't fail. It will change perception. It will change your perceptions. And in this change, he says, now there's room for vision. All right? And vision is that true vision. You'll see everything the way Jesus would. You see everything through the eyes of truth. All right? Vision extends itself. It extends beyond itself, as does the purpose that it serves, and all the means for its accomplishment. Right? So we chip away at the madness here, and have our perceptions changed, all right, until we get to the idea of vision. Right? Perception has changed. And we have the vision. We know what everything is. We understand everything. All right? And with the understanding comes the power to be compassionate and loving. All right? So we bring our perceptions to the place where reason will help us to see correctly. And that's the function of reason, is to change our perceptions until we become aware of who we really are. All righty then. I think that should do it for today. I thank you for listening. I thank you for being here. And I wish you a peaceful week until we meet again. And even if we don't meet again, I wish you peace. All righty then. Bye.